Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Boran Shakroun. I'm Director for Policy and Lifelong Learning Systems at UNESCO headquarters. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the inauguration of this year's World Teacher Day. Happy World Teacher Day to all of you. I take the opportunity to remind you that this year, World Teacher Day will in fact be a week-long series of virtual meetings. All events and meetings are open to the public. Information about each session and registration links are available on our World Teacher Day website. We hope you will be able to join us during the week with the very important meetings and events. Before we move ahead, I would like to highlight the following points. For those watching at home and connected, we recommend that you use a computer rather than a mobile phone or tablet. Make sure you have a good internet connection. Close programs you are not using on your computer. And I would like also to remind our panelists that they should make sure their mobile phones are off or in silent mode throughout the session. Please turn on mute when you are not speaking. Today's session is available in English, French, Arabic, and Spanish through simultaneous interpretations. At this opening ceremony, we are joined by our World Teacher Day conveners, partners. Let me welcome UNICEF, ILO, and Education International. Before handing the floor to them, I will hand the floor to Ms. Stefania Giannini, UNESCO Assistant Director General for Education, to officially inaugurate this year's celebration. Madame Giannini, nous avons le plaisir de vous avoir pour l'ouverture.
Giannini, we're very pleased to have you with us for the opening. You may begin.
Merci beaucoup, Boran.
Thank you very much,
Excellence, chers collègues et chers amis. C'est vraiment un grand plaisir pour moi de vous accueillir dans la célébration que, comme tous les années, on fait à l'UNESCO avec tous les partenaires pour cette journée très importante, surtout aujourd'hui, qui est la journée internationale qui va célébrer le rôle et l'importance cruciale des enseignants, pas seulement pour le système scolaire, mais aussi pour toute la communauté éducative. Et laissez-moi moi dire qu'au début de ces mots d'introduction, que cette année, dans cette crise aussi grave, aussi un précédent que nous vivons encore, le rôle des enseignants dérive naturellement comme un rôle vraiment crucial. Et ce n'est pas par hasard qu'on a dédié beaucoup d'énergie avec notre partenaire pour les relancer, pour avoir vraiment des grandes attentions et des grandes initiatives sur ce sujet. I want to really thank deeply our great partners for this day, UNICEF, ILO, Education International, namely. And let me say that another important part of our job today will be later in this session announcing the 3 laureates of the UNESCO-Hamdan bin Rashid Al Maktoum Prize for outstanding practice and performance in enhancing the effectiveness of teachers. We know a bit the pictures, and I just recall some numbers that frequently we mention in our meetings during the last 6 months. Over 63 million primary and secondary school leaders have been on the front lines of the crisis that led to school closures in 190 countries, affecting 1.6 billion students all over the world. With no warning, and in many cases with little ICT training, teachers definitely adapted themselves, let me say like this, and became a first important critical example and paradigm of resilience and transformative power of education. They adapt the curricula to teach via low and high-tech mediums, from internet and mobile phones to the more traditional channels like television and radio. They prepare take-home packages for the students without connectivity or computers in many regions, in many countries of the world, and they put themselves at risk somehow, sometimes, to provide face-to-face education to children of essential workers. Well, everywhere teachers have gone to extremes to maintain bonds with their students, to keep the human touch, to take into account the socio-emotional side of this process, of this unprecedented situation of learning and teaching as well, and to learn from each other through communities of practice. In so doing, they have not only built the resilience of communities, as I mentioned before, they also embarked on a remarkable voyage of discovery, somehow, towards the uncharted future of education that we are still living. And discovering together with students is one of the main pillars of the teaching profession. So once again, we are reminded that teaching is not just simply a critical profession as it is, a social role important as it is, it's a lifelong vocation. And if there were fears that technology could maybe in the future replace teachers, this crisis has critically demonstrated that the human dimension of learning has the upper hand. The landscape of education has radically changed, dramatically changed, and the future is still very uncertain. Today, schools remain closed nationally in over 50 countries, and they're still affecting over 800 million students. Teachers are providing essential services still on the front lines. Their health, safety, well-being should be definitely a priority. This is something that we share from the beginning of our reflection and actions with our partners within the Global Education Coalition that UNESCO established from the beginning of the crisis at the end of March this year. And this still a strong advice we are giving to government in the next meeting that we are organizing and convening on the 20th and 22nd October, calling for action and calling for political will and commitment at the highest level of countries in the world, from prime ministers, heads of state, to ministers of education and development as well. And let me say that at the forthcoming of this GEM, extraordinary session of the GEM 2020, we are sure that the flagship of teachers we started to work on and to relaunch from the beginning of the crisis will be some of the content that everybody will agree with. I'm sure that we'll recognize together the role of teachers in the coming months and years. We'll recognize the importance of investing in teachers. Either we talk of financial investment and training and more technical and content-oriented investment. So to conclude, teacher will help us to discover the future. And we should do everything possible, really everything possible, to ensure they have the right tools in their hands, everything they need to build better and to build a better tomorrow. I thank you, all of you, very much, and happy World Teachers' Day.
Thank you, Stefania, very much, and thank you for expressing bold and clear the voice of UNESCO in supporting and committing to the teaching profession. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, since its inception over 25 years ago, to mark the anniversary of the signature of the 1966 ILO UNESCO recommendation concerning the status of teachers, UNESCO has co-convened World Teacher Day with a group of partners who are as committed to the teaching profession as it is. Today, I'm pleased to say that we are joined by UNICEF, represented by Mr. Robert Jenkins, who is the Chief of Education and Associate Director of the Program Division. by the ILO, represented by Ms. Martha Newton, who is the Deputy Director General for Policy, and by Education International, represented by Mr. Fred Van Leuven, General Secretary Emeritus. So let me start by giving the floor to Mr. Robert Jenkins. The floor is yours, Rob.
Thank you very much, Borjen, and Stefania Giannini, the Assistant Director General for Education, my dear friend. Ladies and gentlemen, teachers all over the world, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm speaking as the Chief Education from UNICEF, but also very much speaking as a former teacher, someone married to a teacher, as a parent who interacts with teachers. And as we just recognize, teachers very much, building on Stefania's comments, teachers are very much part of our professional life, our personal life, and very much at the center of the community, always have been. And I feel this crisis has once again reconfirmed indeed the critical role that teachers are playing in all of our lives. When COVID-19 struck, teachers have essentially become frontline workers in an incredibly challenging and protracted crisis. My friend Stefania mentioned some of the numbers. These are the scale of this crisis and the scale of the impact on students, but also on teachers, would have been unthinkable before we're now living it. And indeed, their teachers' health, well-being, and ensuring that they receive sufficient support as key providers of learning for children, as key members of our community, is a key and first priority for all of us. Now, this challenging time has also, though, shown it is indeed a very exciting time, as Stefania also highlighted. Many new approaches have been adopted all over the world with teachers at the center of that. They have indeed pioneered new ways to keep children learning during this challenging time. And at many times that has come at great personal expense and risk. For example, in many countries, teachers have set up SMS or WhatsApp groups, engaging with learners and parents. In Jordan, for example, teachers paid home visits to learners in refugee camps. In a school in Kampala in Uganda, teachers created a television show and keep students engaged in learning. In many other countries similarly. In Turkey, teachers were working with very disadvantaged and children living in very challenging circumstances, and worked alongside them and filmed learning lessons and other activities and broadcasted on YouTube. In Afghanistan, teachers worked with students over the telephone when schools were closed, again, to keep the engagement, to keep children a sense of continue to have someone on the other side of the lines that they could feel less alone, but also to continue their learning. The world, as I had mentioned, has come to see firsthand once again the critical role that teachers play in supporting children's well-being and creating new and ambitious pathway for societies and communities. However, indeed, it continues to be a challenge to ensure that teachers remain sufficiently supported. According to UNESCO's survey, 2/3 of educators feel they do not have the skills to design and facilitate distant learning in this challenging time. And so the training of educators on pedagogical practices from online and offline and remote learning indeed also is a piece of this puzzle that needs to be further emphasized. There are also good examples of that, including in countries such as Armenia and Bulgaria, and Malaysia, and France. Many countries all over the world are indeed stepping up and providing sufficient support and also training for teachers during this challenging time. We are presented with a once-in-a-generation opportunity to transform and revolutionize how education is delivered, and teachers will be at the center of that. That's guided by the need to accelerate the pace and scale of change in this field, to modernize, to enable education to become more flexible and adaptive. More than ever, it is now critical for every child to be provided with high-quality education that is self-paced and relevant to each child's context, including in their language. It's skill-based and promotes the engagement of children and youth in their learning. It's holistic, focused on child's well-being and also their safety, and perhaps most importantly, that it reaches every child globally. Well-trained teachers and well-supported teachers will be absolutely at the center of this transformation. Thanks again, Borjen. Thank you, Stefania, for this opportunity, and I look forward to the engagement.
Merci beaucoup, Rob.
Thank you very much, Rob. You're sharing very important experience with us, but you're also emphasizing the importance of skill development, and everyone needs to react to that, and everyone needs to work in that direction. Thank you very much, Rob, for being with us today. Now let me give the floor to Ms. Martha Newton, Vice Director General for the ILO. You have the floor.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Madam Assistant Director General, and ladies and gentlemen, and most importantly, the teachers who are online with us today. Having recently joined the ILO as Deputy Director General for Policy, but more importantly, as an individual who has been motivated and mentored by many teachers in my own life, including my mother, who was a primary school teacher, it's my distinct honor to join you all today to celebrate World Teachers Day. It's no question that 2020 has provided front and center the critical importance of teachers and underlined the valuable role of teachers in this time of crisis. We've seen teachers quickly adapt distance learning and technologies and techniques, often having to make personal investments in tools and materials to ensure that they could do their job. Teachers are also being called on to organize the safety and health of learners and colleagues in the classroom, and are playing a key role in the community by teaching about infection, not just the subjects that they're in charge of, but also about infection control and disease prevention. So the teaching profession is now more important than ever. Teachers and trainers are needed to catch up learners that have missed school, to train and reskill workers that have been affected by this devastating pandemic, and the job losses, challenging, helping to address the challenge of job losses that have been caused by the pandemic, and to stem the scourge of child labor that has grown due to school closings. So as we look at how we can build back better during and after this COVID pandemic, we have to ensure first and foremost that teachers are fully supported in their leadership roles. As Robert stated, teachers have become frontline workers, and we have to protect teachers on the job, making sure that schools have adequate health and safety measures. Teachers need adequate health and safety benefits so they can stay home if their families are sick. And we also have to better train teachers so they can use distance learning technologies and ensure that they don't have to bear the cost of these tools. But beyond these initial measures, we need to build back resilient education systems that can ensure teachers decent wages and working conditions. Such conditions should make the teaching profession a natural career choice for young leaders who want to contribute to their community. So teachers should have professional autonomy so that they can innovate and lead new approaches in education. And above all, teachers should have a strong voice in developing policies for more resilient education systems. So I think to achieve these important goals, we must rethink our economic and social priorities to ensure strong investment in public goods and services, such as education, which have proved to be critical and at the center of this global crisis. So the ILO is glad to be participating today with our colleagues from Education International and our sister agencies, UNESCO and UNICEF, on this World Teachers Day, and to call for qualified, motivated, and well-supported teachers as a key element in building back better after this pandemic. I look forward to hearing what you all have to say today, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martha, and it's always a pleasure to feel ILO side by side with UNESCO, UNICEF, Education International on this very important day. Thank you for also insisting on not only the teacher capacities, but also the teacher's socio-emotional well-being and the importance of protecting their rights and their status, but also to connect the education with the sustainable development agenda. I think we all share this perspective, and thank you for being with us, Martin, and welcome to the large family of the World Teacher Day. Let me now move to the next speaker in this session, Mr. Fred Van Leuven, representing Education International. Please, Fred, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, colleagues, friends, World Teachers Day in the throes of the COVID-19 pandemic is a strange celebration, I believe. But we must celebrate teachers today who are struggling, providing quality education in the most difficult circumstances. In most countries, schools and education institutions have been closed or crippled. And to keep in contact with their students, teachers used online platforms, at least where that technology was available, or they used radio, television, and other means. But a survey conducted by Education International on the impact of COVID-19 on education in Africa, which we launched today, reveals that no meaningful learning took place during school closures on the continent. The digital divide meant greater exclusion, leaving children from poor families further behind. And there are similar problems in other parts of the world. Even in most developed economies, learning gaps have grown. Unfortunately, with rare exceptions, the pandemic economic response has shortchanged education, we believe. In some countries, and some of you mentioned this already, educators have shown a phenomenal creative and innovative capacity. They were able to respond swiftly with online teaching and learning programs. But even in those situations, distance education and dependence on technology, although better than nothing, can never replace in-person education. As John Dewey taught us 1 century ago, the reality of education is found in a personal and face-to-face contact of teacher and child. And I know that parents with lockdown experience will not disagree. Yes, teaching is a profession. Dear friends, healthcare workers and teachers, they are in the forefront of helping societies deal with the pandemic. Yet, we have found that educators in precarious situations, including those on short-term contracts and in private schools, are disproportionately affected by the pandemic. Many not being paid or even losing their jobs. And one lesson we have learned is that countries with strong public school systems are doing much better in coping with the crisis than countries where schooling has been outsourced to the private sector. And like healthcare, education is a vital public good that should not be placed at the mercy of markets. Governments now need to take full responsibility and, where possible, ensure a safe return to in-school learning. And we call upon them to adhere to WHO, UNESCO, and our own recommendations on school reopening. And we know that in continuous dialogue with teachers through their unions, plans can be developed that are fair, that are safe, and that are workable. Today, Education International is hosting a massive 24-hour celebration spanning the globe. Teacher representatives will come together to share experience, tools, and innovative solutions. ensuring free quality education for all, defending education from austerity, and making sure teachers are heard. Those will be the main topics. And please do not hesitate to join that global conversation at ei-ie.org after our celebration here at UNESCO. We are very grateful to our friends at UNESCO, Dialogue, and at UNICEF for celebrating our profession today. We continue counting on your support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fred, for highlighting the importance of social dialogue, the importance of teachers' voice, the importance of involving teachers, and insisting about the importance of education as a public good. Thanks to Rob, Marta, and Fred, and Stefania for their introductory intervention. Dear colleagues, we just heard about the importance of the teacher voice, and that's what we will be trying to do in the next session. We are all aware that COVID pandemic has put education system and particularly teachers under a great amount of stress and pressure. But also, over the month, we have seen countless stories emerging from all over the globe of teachers who have stepped up to support not only the learners in their care, but also their families and communities. The teachers we are about to hear from is one of those million of unsung heroes. Ms. Sri Sulistiani works in Balong Public High School in the rural area of Jember, East Java in Indonesia. It's a geographical course, but it's very important for us to know where those schools exist and the importance of reaching out and hearing the voice of different type of teachers. During the pandemic, the soft-spoken teacher has shown leadership in her school and her community in countless ways. Not only did she continue teaching and her school activities, but she also supported her community through food growing project as well as opening up her own home for girls who needed a place to take shelter. We are so happy to be able to hear from her today, and we will listen to her intervention. Please. If the technology allows, of course.
East of Java. Most of my students come from families of farmers and fishers. I've been teaching math in high school since 1998. To be a teacher is a joy for me. It gives me an opportunity to meet new people, to learn and to inspire one another and be inspired. Teaching means also learning, and I am grateful and feel blessed to be a teacher. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed all our lives, and the education system has been forced to adjust accordingly. Teachers are responsible to keep teaching, but we must also take care of our health. As teachers, these difficult times have given us opportunities to build our awareness of the challenges we face, to build our social solidarity. We are challenged to increase our creativity to carry out our tasks in these new circumstances. I believe that all teachers, hand in hand, will support and inspire each other to bring about changes that lead to a better version of our education, despite the obstacles we are now facing. Today, I would like to share some of my experiences of teaching during the COVID-19 pandemic and how we have had to adapt. With students learning from home, I organized an online service that students could consult to handle any problems they might face at home. This includes advocating for a helpline for the victims of sexual violence, as violence against children increased during the pandemic. With the help of my friends, I opened the doors of my house so it could be used as a shelter. While conducting distance learning, we continue to do all the activities we had planned to do previously. For example, the election of the Students' Council. I always encourage the girl to run for it. Having female perspective in any organization is important. Before the pandemic, I asked my students to volunteer to clean all the neighboring places of worship, from mosques to temples and churches. This activity fosters interfaith dialogue in an easy and relaxed way. Now I encourage them to meet virtually with friends from other schools with different backgrounds. They discuss issues raised in their context and write an essay about things they learn. Finally, there is food security, which is a problem for many families. I created a program involving home-based vegetable gardens. Students learn how to plant and grow their own vegetables, and also learn about self-reliance. These activities also serve to relieve stress among learners and their families, and to have fun at home. It is with great pleasure that I have seen how all these activities have made students happy, despite the situation we are all facing. My message to all my fellow teachers is, let us do all we can to seek happiness during these difficult times. It can always be found in the small things around us. It is true, learning is fun, healthy, and happy. I wish you all wonderful Teachers' Day. Thank you.
Thanks to Ms. Sulistiani for her intervention and for reminding us about the importance of happiness in learning and at schools. Thanks also to Mr. Van Leuven, to Mr. Newton, to Mr. Jenkins, and the Signora Giannini for joining us today. The World Teacher Day celebration are now officially underway. And their colleagues, distinguished participants, in view of the invaluable contribution teachers have made to ensure that education and learning continues, it is especially fitting that this year UNESCO will be awarding the 6th UNESCO-Hamdan bin Rashid Al Maktoum Prize for outstanding practice and performance in enhancing the effectiveness of teachers. However, before the winners are announced, this ceremony is also the occasion to launch an important project that has been developed with the backing of the Hamdan Foundation. The Hamdan Foundation is supporting teachers through its partnership with the International Task Force for Teachers for Education 2030, whose secretariat is hosted by UNESCO. In particular, the members of this Global Alliance for Teachers recognizes that there is a real need to increase international, regional, and national cooperation and knowledge sharing on teachers and teaching issues. We are proud today to be hosting the official launch of the Teachers Task Force Knowledge Platform, which seeks to support teachers through increased cooperation and knowledge sharing. The development of the platform, which included a repository of information on teachers and teaching, as well as member space to increase cooperation, has been generally supported by the Hamdan Foundation. On behalf of the Teacher Task Force and the Hamdan Foundation, it is my pleasure to officially announce its launch today and to ask you to join us in the visit the website and the platform. Please see the short video to follow now.
A good teacher can empower children to reach their dreams and create a better future. But millions of children will never have the chance to experience this. Across the world, there's a shortage of around 69 million teachers. The challenge is greatest in sub-Saharan Africa, where 17 million teachers are needed to reach the growing population of school-age children. But not having enough teachers is only part of the problem. In many countries, teachers are working in difficult conditions without the training and resources they need to ensure children are learning. To achieve the world's goal of inclusive and equitable education for all, we need more teachers who are qualified and receive better training and support. The Teacher Task Force is a global network of over 140 organizations and countries working to support and advance teachers and the teaching profession across the globe. We're using 3 main actions to achieve our goals: advocacy, knowledge creation and sharing, and country support. But education worldwide is facing an unprecedented disruption. COVID-19, reminding us just how valuable our educators are. Teachers play a crucial role in ensuring that learning continues, and often in difficult circumstances. They need our support. Thanks to partnership with the Hamdan Foundation, the Teacher Task Force is giving teachers the potential to transform education systems through the development of the new online knowledge platform. The new online platform supports teachers by promoting collaboration, innovation, and evidence-based policy making, and by providing governments with the tools they need to strengthen the teaching profession. The Teacher Task Force wants to ensure there's a qualified, motivated, and empowered teacher in every classroom, so every child is in school and learning. With more and better supported teachers, we can change the futures of children everywhere.
شكرا لمؤسسة حمدان على هذا الدعم.
We thank the foundation, the Hamdan Foundation, for its support. And now we are going to announce the winners who will receive the Hamdan UNESCO Prize for outstanding practice and performance in enhancing the effectiveness of teachers. The prize is awarded every 2 years. It was established in 2008 with a view to shining the light on outstanding projects which have enhanced the effectiveness of teachers and in turn to contribute to the development of their communities. These projects and this award have contributed to the attainment of the Global Sustainable Development Goals, and in particular target SDG 4 on teachers. Madam Audrey Azoulay and His Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Rashid Al Maktoum are among us to now announce this year's winners.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I'm delighted to be joining you for this ceremony today. I would like to start by thanking His Highness Sheikh Hamdan bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Deputy Ruler of Dubai, UAE Minister of Finance and the patron of the Hamdan Foundation, for supporting UNESCO's action for education through his unwavering commitment. This commitment is even more significant today as we celebrate World Teachers' Day in such an unprecedented context. As a result of COVID-19, 63 million primary and secondary teachers were suddenly forced to teach remotely. 1.3 billion learners were prevented from attending class. During this period of uncertainty, educators reacted quickly and creatively. They adapted lessons, sometimes completely changing teaching methods, while giving students stability and support. However, teachers also need training and assistance, especially as we work to build better and more resilient education systems. International Teachers' Day is therefore an opportunity for us to show our gratitude. This devotion by teachers is all the more remarkable given that too often themselves have never received training for this profession. Before the crisis, 1 in 7 teachers affected by school and university closures had never been trained to teach. And this figure was 42% in sub-Saharan Africa. This is why the Global Education Coalition, launched by UNESCO in response to the COVID-19 crisis, has made teacher training one of its strategic focuses. With the help of over 150 partners, we aim to provide professional training and learning resources to 13 million teachers over 70 countries. In Senegal, for example, we mobilized the coalition's resources to develop a distance learning platform reaching 82,000 teachers and through them 500,000 learners. Another initiative is even more ambitious. It aims to develop the teaching skills of 500,000 educators in the Sahel, West Africa, Asia, and small island developing states. All these efforts must be maintained and strengthened. That's why today we are pleased to be launching the Global Teacher Campus as part of the Global Education Coalition. This Teacher Campus will provide training to 1 million educators on digital skills, skills which became essential during the crisis. As this shows, the coalition builds on UNESCO's actions for teachers and furthers our focus on teaching methods. This work is absolutely crucial, even looking beyond the current context. The Hamdan Prize exists for this very reason. It allows us to identify and raise international awareness of effective teaching methods and promising initiatives. This year's 3 prize winners are no exception. They show us how new technologies can make such an important contribution to teaching. I therefore warmly congratulate this year's laureates: Telefônica Vivo Fundação in Brazil, Educate Me in Egypt, and the Associação para a Inserção por Centros Digitais de Informação in Portugal. On this International Day, the commitment of these organizations and initiatives are a reminder that if we want to reinforce education, we need to support teachers. This means giving them the recognition they deserve, the respect, the salaries that reflect their importance in society, acknowledging their role during crisis, and listening to their views on how we can jointly define the futures of education. Because educators are much more than teaching professionals. In the words of the American poet and English teacher Robert Frost, they are the world's awakeners. I thank you for your attention.
سعادة المدير العام لليونسكو السادة رؤساء
Director General of UNESCO, Your Excellency, Your Excellencies, heads of delegation, dear participants, peace be upon you all, and may the mercy of Allah Almighty bless you. The spirit of cooperation in which the UNESCO-Hamdan Prize was founded is truly reflected today in our meeting organized at a distance. The spirit of cooperation expresses the human race's will to overcome challenges and obstacles and crises in the form of pandemics as well. And in that spirit, we have worked together so as to contribute to strengthening education for all, to promote quality education at the service of the most vulnerable communities and the least advanced ones. Together, we have been able to attract more than 729 participants from different countries as candidates, and we have awarded 17 prizes among educational institutions which showed themselves to be deserving in this field. We are also very proud of the success that the UNESCO-Hamdan Prize has had. The funds have allowed us to finance 3 programs which are important to UNESCO: STEP for pre-primary education teachers, and the organization of the 12th International Forum for Policy Dialogue on the Future of Education, which was held in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, and also the funding of the Teacher Task Force Knowledge Platform with a specialized team for teachers. This platform, which will be officially launched today. Dear colleagues, given all of these results, this is made possible by our joint project, and it was also made possible because of the relations between our different organizations, UNESCO and the United Arab Emirates, and also thanks to the partnership with the Hamdan Foundation for academic performance of an exemplary nature. I would like, given these positive developments, to thank UNESCO and the Director General as well as the standing delegation. We have confirmed here how well-founded our vision is. The quality education will allow us to build a better world and a prosperous future. I will conclude by congratulating the winners of this new prize from Egypt, Portugal, and Brazil. I wish them lots of courage in pursuing their praiseworthy efforts to make their exemplary experience known and to let their knowledge be beneficial to everyone who wants to improve their educational contexts. I would also like to thank all the other candidates who participated in this prize, wishing them success and good luck in upcoming prize rounds. Thank you all, and may the peace and blessings of God be upon you.
This year, the UNESCO-Hamdan Prize is awarded to Telefônica Vivo Foundation from Brazil for the project Escolas Conectadas, the Educate Me Foundation from Egypt for the project School Transformation Journey, and CDI Portugal for the projects Apps for Good. Telefônica Vivo Foundation Brazil, Escolas Conectadas. Since 1999, the Telefônica Vivo Foundation has worked to bring about social transformation through projects that use technology to support educators and students. The Escolas Conectadas Connected School platform was launched in 2015. The project's objective is to promote the inclusion of educators in digital culture and foster the development of 21st century skills among students through innovative teaching methodologies. The platform offers 38 distance education courses on a wide range of subjects. The courses last 4 weeks and target basic education teachers with students aged 6 to 18, school administrators and managers from all over Brazil. In 2019, the project reached 65,000 educators in 1,483 different municipalities from all of the 26 Brazilian states and its federal district. Educate Me Foundation Egypt, School Transformation Journey. Established in 2012, the Educate Me Foundation works to develop education in Egypt through a progressive skill-based learner-centered education model, while promoting a culture of self-reliance and lifelong learning. School Transformation Journey is a 3-year program that seeks to develop dialogue and understanding between schools and their local administrations. By disseminating a culture of self-reliance among school-based educators, it creates an environment that fosters the education of knowledge and experiences among educators. Well-trained and qualified teachers implement the program, which develops the capacities of educators in each school until they become experts in the field of 21st century learning. To date, the program has reached 6,000 educators, 430 public schools, and 7 governorates across Egypt. Center for Digital Inclusion Portugal, Apps for Good. The Center of Digital Inclusions is a Portuguese non-profit organization that looks to create and support flagship projects that shape a brighter future for its users. Apps for Good, which has been implemented in Portugal since 2015, is a technological education program that challenges students and teachers to develop applications for smartphones or tablets, showing them the potential technology has to transform the communities where they live. It is also a tool to bridge the gap between the classroom and real-world industries. Teachers involved in the program have reported enhanced professional satisfaction, the discovery of different teaching methodologies, and the development of interdisciplinary experiences and approaches. Over 80% of them also reported that it had improved their technical knowledge and skills. Over the past 6 years, it has reached 13,080 students and 1,133 teachers from 448 schools, who in turn have developed over 1,000 technological solutions. Thank you for your contribution to building more inclusive and quality education for all teachers.
Let me join Director General and His Highness to personally thank and congratulate the winners. Dear colleagues, I suppose that we all would like to know more about these examples and these projects, and to understand what are the drivers, what are the initiatives, and what are the challenges as well from the three winners. So we'll have now that opportunity, and we'll hear about their project in greater detail in a panel discussion that will be moderated by the President of the Prizes International Jury, Mr. Luc Ria. The panel will address connectivity in schools as development hubs to empower teachers after the COVID-19. Over to you, Luc, to moderate the session, please.
Bonjour.
Good afternoon.
Je vous remercie beaucoup. Je suis très honoré.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to have this possibility. I will start by thanking the Director General of UNESCO and Shika Maktoum for having had this possibility to participate in this international prize, which is unique and prestigious for exemplary practice in improving the effectiveness of teachers at international scale. I would like specifically to have a thought for all teachers throughout the world today in a context which is very difficult for them and which requires even more training and professional development. The Hamdan Prize, the UNESCO-Hamdan Prize, could be considered as an international observatory, which is particularly stimulating for original practices, in particular in teacher training and for digital education, both in initial and in continuous training, education generally. We have come together with members of the jury to evaluate more than 100 candidates coming from more than 30 countries, emphasizing various criteria which all seemed essential to us. First of all, the description of the context of the experiment so as to understand the educational ecosystems. Then we were particularly interested by organizations' robustness and how their teaching structures worked. We also took the time to identify the specific needs of the different target groups in terms of universal inclusion, both of students and of teachers. We were also very attentive to the quality of support for local and national partners so that these projects could be developed on a larger scale. We were also very attentive to the tangible impact in terms of professional development of teachers and of progress in school for students. All of these criteria were our relevant benchmarks. Let me also bring out a couple of points that seem important. The three prize-winning projects are ambassadors for us. They are exemplary in more than one way. They ticked all of the boxes, and we would like truly to congratulate them for being so exemplary. We are very happy indeed, therefore, to be able to give the first project prize to Renata Mandelbaum. And I would like to ask a first question. In this project, Renata, there were methodological innovations which were identified. Could you give us a few examples, very concrete ones, of teaching innovation in your project? We can't hear the speaker. Well, I'd like to start by thanking you very much for representing the Telefónica Foundation in Brazil. And the sound has failed again. We're very sorry. I'd like to congratulate my colleagues from Portugal also, and from Egypt. And talking about our project for connected schools, Escolas Conectadas, what we understand as an innovation here, well, I could mention two different dimensions of innovation, I think, which you could see. There's a macro level where we see that the project innovates with innovations of scale. When you think of a country like Brazil, how big it is, what we've managed to do here is to reach a very large number of teachers with technology and in a very personalized way, which is based on things that teachers already know and which they can make even greater use of. And so innovation begins here with the scale that technology allows us to reach. But then when we look at the micro level and the technology we have in the platform, the most innovative thing that there is here is that all of the courses we have, and there are 38 of them on the Escolas Conectadas platform, and they're all based on experimentation and exchange of practice. It's a peer-to-peer process. So there is a process with a lot of exchange, lots of practicing. And so all of this experimenting and exchange, I think, are the things that bring about the most innovation in our platform. The other thing which we have in the platform is the possibility for teachers to choose their own training routes. And so they have these pathways where they can choose subjects. They can say they want to innovate in time and space, or in the curriculum, or in practices, in relations, in digital culture. Teachers can choose which are the paths that they wish to follow and undertake this route or path with many different options to choose underway. That, I think, is what's innovative in our platform. Well, on the presentations, could you say there are any specific methodologies which were used during the health crisis?
Yes. Well, now, with the pandemic, what we've noted, to begin my reply, is that the number of teachers who were seeking these solutions has increased. We tripled the number of teachers who signed up to these courses compared to the same period last year. So there's a real search for solutions. And what we did in 2020 was we made it possible for a practice community. When teachers begin the course, they are not alone in their training and their development. They can also exchange with other teachers and with their tutors. And this is something which is very essential in times of global health pandemic. The use of exchange, practice exchange, and dialogue has been very essential in these times. Thank you very much, and congratulations once again for this incredible project, Renata. Christine, good afternoon. Congratulations for your project on School Transformation Programme. We're very pleased to have awarded this beautiful project. I'd like to ask you some specific questions about the lifelong learning hub that you've developed throughout your project. Could you perhaps describe in more detail what you mean or how you perceive this lifelong learning?
Hi, Luke, and hi, everyone. Thank you very much for this great opportunity and for the award. And I'd like to also thank UNESCO and Hamdan Foundation, and congratulations, my colleagues from Portugal and Brazil. What we at Educate Me, when we say lifelong learning hubs or lifelong learning schools, we basically or mainly mean that when a school moves from it being a dependent school to it becoming an independent school in terms of the development of the school community as a whole. So the school moving to becoming to nurturing a kind of a learning culture and becoming in itself a learning community and also being part of the bigger learning community of the system as a whole. And we believe that there are four main elements to that. The first one is building a common language or a common understanding of specific concepts and ideas. So we work with the teachers and the educators on the concept of what is learning in the 21st century skill, and this needs to be a common language and understanding across the school. We also work with them on the importance of the humanistic input in education and how they should be working not only on the academic part, but also on the social emotional aspect of themselves and the students as well, so that they would be able to work with the student as a whole. And also, we also work in the concept of the self-learning and the continuous self-learning and what it means to continuously self-learn and self-improve. So that's the first component. The second component is that we also encourage the teams both inside the school and outside the school to be able to adapt the concept of lifelong learning or the concept of continuous learning. And we do that through various interventions through our program, where we work inside the school for up to 3 years with different various interventions of trainings, on-the-job coaching, hands-on activities, so that we would nurture the culture of learning and nurture the culture of self-development and self-improvement. And so we'd help them improve their own performance of the school and the school environment as a whole, so that they would contribute to the school becoming a lifelong learning school. And the third component or element is that we also need to have a proper system in place that actually encourages the sustainability of professional development inside the school. So we also work on allocating the most proactive teachers inside the school, and we train them on how to design and how to carry out the program beyond Educate Me's existence inside the school, so that they would carry out this program even after the program ends inside the school, and they would be able to take the lifelong learning process forward with the school team. And finally, and most importantly, is the community of practice. We also have them become part of a larger community where they get to share best practices, share knowledge, get access to mentors, and so that the whole schools in the system would become a big learning community. So number one is basically having a common language and understanding inside the school. Number two is properly having the team inside and outside the school that adopts the idea of continuous learning. Number three is basically having a system that would ensure sustainability of professional development. And number four, the community of practice.
Merci beaucoup pour cette réponse très
Thank you very much for that very detailed response. You insisted on the community of practice, these professional communities. Has your project during the health crisis allowed you to create pedagogical continuity among your teams?
Well, yes. So during the COVID crisis, In the public system in Egypt, of course, like all other countries, schools closed, classrooms became empty, and all of a sudden teachers were completely disconnected from their students. Not only that, but the teachers became extremely demotivated. They felt a little bit irrelevant to what is happening, having that the system shifted to becoming online, this online platform that was assigned by the ministry. And so the teachers felt helpless and they needed support. And so Educate Me Foundation has developed and carried out an online toolkit that actually tackles different aspects for the teachers. And the main message that Educate Me wanted to convey to the teachers then was that your role is beyond the physical classroom. Your role extends to the student's life as a whole. And so we were tackling, first of all, the social emotional aspect of the teachers and the educators themselves. So we believe that we needed to work with them on how they would manage their own emotions and their own stresses at the time so that they would be able to offer that to their students. And number two, we were also tackling the social element of how do they manage their relationships with the parents, particularly that at that time, the parents had a much bigger role in the education, of course, in the learning activity. So how do they manage their relationships with them? And then finally, how do we work with them on empowering them and equipping them with the tools and the knowledge to be able to use the platform that was assigned with the ministry, both technically and both on the academic front. And so, yes, we have been able to deliver that. And we are actually very proud to become the first organization in Egypt to actually be able to deliver an online toolkit only 10 days right after the ministry announced the change.
Merci beaucoup. En tout cas, félicitations.
Thank you very much. Congratulations once again. And now we are going to move on to the next laureate. If the Portuguese delegation is present, that is the Apps for Good project. Renata and Christine, please stay with us because I'll be asking questions later on. And the floor may ask you questions too. Now moving on to our third laureate. I can't see him. Oh, there he is. Good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be able to see you. I had a technical issue. Apologies. This is a very interesting project, and I insist on the fact that the jury spent a lot of time looking into your projects, and your projects are very unique to your cultures, of course, but there are also universal elements in the way in which you've used your ingenuity to help teachers. In your team, you insisted on the digital divide or the digital gap. So could you perhaps tell us more about how you addressed this digital gap, how you bridged the digital divide?
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you to Your Highness, to UNESCO, to all the attendees, and all the panelists. Thank you. This prize is really very important for us. That's why, first of all, I'm sorry, I have to present part of my team that's here with me. Okay. Sorry. Okay, and thank you very much. About your question, yes, to reduce the digital gap of teachers and students is the most important for us. In fact, the teachers' digital gap is still one of the biggest problem in the education environment. In our Apps for Good program, teacher training is really one of the most important activity. In this training, we simulate in a few hours, in one day, the same process they will do with their students in 1 year. But the use of technology in the classroom is not only to know how to work with computers, with tablets or mobile phones, or even the software tools. Is much more to have the proper contents and processes. The project methodology is fundamental to teachers and students in the future, as well as the development of all the 21st century soft skills like creativity and self-confidence, for instance. The target is to bring teachers to use technology. In our Apps for Good Portugal, we have more than 55% of non-IT teachers and 67% of women. That is not only what we call to close the digital gap, but also to reduce the gender inequality in digital world.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. There's one thing that really struck me and the jury. That was the notion of teachers who become enablers in this project, mediators. Perhaps you could give us some more concrete examples of the way in which you have made teachers enablers regarding the learning of students.
Yes, in Absolute, the teacher is the facilitator and not the leader. That is not less important, and so far is more important still. Our methodology constitutes a role change for teachers who give up their front of the class position in favor of a more collaborative contribution to the teaching process. Is not the one supposed to know everything about everything. We believe the future of education must be based on this, on a student-driven learning. We know that it's not an easy task, even to students. You ask me about examples, and sometimes these examples, like the teachers, there is to change in the role of students, and many of whom are used to being passive participants in the education process. Normally, the students ask at the middle, what should I do? And the normal answer should be, I don't know either. Let's work on it together. In Absolute, teachers just facilitate the process, help students thinking critically on things by asking them questions that leads them to answers. By this way, we believe we are putting more responsibility to learning on the shoulders of students while giving them space to learning through and on work. But the idea comes from students. Teacher suggests some models, but the business model always came from students. And at the end, teacher normally learn from students and external experts the best way to communicate the idea. That's it, and that's the examples that I think we can give.
The speaker's microphone is not turned on.
You're in mute mode.
Voilà, excusez-moi.
Apologies. Thank you very much for those three inspiring presentations. I'd like to ask you one last question in the last few minutes we have. There are invariable aspects of these projects. We're talking about community of practice and communities of teachers, and we see how much work goes into ensuring that these are transgenerational, transdisciplinary teams. We've also seen the importance of digital technology. The aim, of course, is not to use digital as an end in itself, but for it to serve the purpose of education. And we believe it's important to put in place evaluation processes to understand how effective the learning process has been, but also for teachers, so that they can take ownership of these tools, following ethics, of course, which is very important, so that they have the opportunity to be united and to learn together from these tools. I think there are some very strong elements in your projects, given the diversity of your different cultures. It really gives us a valuable insight into the learning of teachers and their development. So my question, to begin with, let's ask Renata. How can we ensure that your project gains more visibility? How can we ensure that in the months and weeks to come, you can broaden your project so that it reaches a higher number of students and teachers and schools? Thank you very much, Luke. That's a very good question. It's something that we're constantly striving for, to ensure that we reach more people. We have strong communication projects for outreach through social media, for example, using various different platforms, using emails, websites. We convey lots of information through this communication project, but we also have a way of reaching out to teachers, which is through governments. We have been working with education secretaries from the different governments so that they can reach out to teachers. We've created a partnership, and this is very important to ensure that we gain more visibility and that we are able to reach more teachers who may benefit from this project. Thank you very much. Christine, could you give us your opinion on this?
Well, I think there's three main things that Educate Me could be working on in order to have more visibility. The first one is the on-ground evidence-based results that we have. So ensuring that whatever we're working on the ground, we're collecting this data, we're collecting the applications and the practices that are happening to be able to have something, kind of a proof of concept to say that this is working in that sense. And secondly, advocating for that. So advocacy, I think, plays a very important role in that. So taking those practices and this data and this evidence back to the policymakers and decision makers and ensuring that they themselves come and see on the ground. I believe so much in field visits, and what you can say in 2 hours could simply be said in just a 1 minute visit around the school. So advocacy and having proper communications and networks with the decision makers. And finally, I think proper networking with the teachers themselves, because they are the ones who hold the solution and they are the ones we are betting on. So I think having a very proper network with them and expanding our community of practice, both online and offline, and expanding it and scaling it beyond even the educators that Educate Me is currently working with, so that other schools would know about that, about the program and about how they could further develop their own schools.
Merci beaucoup, Christine.
Thank you very much, Christine. João, what is your view on this?
Yes, about scaling, we are having a real good support from the Ministry of Education as far as we are growing, and the ministry is with us. Then this allows us to have the teacher training growing in a good scale, you know, because every year we have new contents and new things on technology. Then we have a lot of work to create the contents, and really the Portuguese government is taking care to these actions and to support us from the digital transition to the education ministry, and that's very important for us. What we are trying is to bring to teachers always new ways to teach, new contents to know, and new things to show to their students.
Merci beaucoup. Je suis vraiment
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure to meet you, and I hope I get to meet you in person one day, and the members of the jury would have loved to be able to exchange with you in person. I think we're all able to adapt to digital technology, but just like teachers, I think we also put a lot of importance on human relationships, and the relationship between teachers and their students is essential to reach our goals. So thank you very much to all of you, and I hope that we'll be able to see each other in the future in person in a better context.
Thank you very much, Luke.
Gracias, Luke.
Thank you very much, Luke.
We'll go on with this interesting discussion in another panel that will be talking about strategic aspects of innovative teaching in a post-COVID world. This panel is made up of the best projects. Can you? I'm sorry, there's too much background noise. We cannot interpret the speaker.
Estos proyectos son también sobresalientes. Cedo la palabra a la señora Janice Carol Lind, otro miembro del jurado
internacional. The speaker is introducing the panelists, but we can't hear him properly.
Kia ora. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. I greet you in Te Reo Māori, the Indigenous language of New Zealand. My name is Dr. Janice Carol Lind, and I work for a teacher education provider called Te Rito Maioha Early Childhood New Zealand. I represented Asia and the Pacific as a juror on the 6th edition of the UNESCO-Hamdan Prize. So, welcome to this special virtual panel organised for UNESCO's World Teachers' Day celebrations. The purpose of this particular session is to discuss ideas for scaling up innovative teaching practices to support the transformation of educational systems in the aftermath of COVID-19. Our lovely panel consists of 6 finalists, not including the winners of the 6th edition of the UNESCO-Hamdan Prize. As a juror, I have been humbled and inspired by the commitment and dedication shown by all the applicants as they strive to effect change that transforms lives by enhancing the effectiveness of teachers in their respective countries, more often than not, under very challenging circumstances. As we all know, the global pandemic has brought a new dimension to this because now teachers must work harder than ever to develop transformational practices, strategies and initiatives to ensure their learners flourish in the COVID-19 environment and beyond. The World Teachers' Day theme for 2020 is Teachers, Leading in Crisis, Reimagining the Future. So in this panel discussion, we hope to hear how the UNESCO-Hamdan Prize finalists are effecting change in order to build resilient education systems within their communities, while also responding to the added challenges caused by the pandemic. Shortly, each finalist will give a brief introduction about their organisation and project. The representatives from Colombia and Kazakhstan will address the topic of building better educational systems in school environments. The representatives from Peru and South Africa will cover the second topic, building new community practices to support teacher development. The third topic is scaling teacher training practices and the use of ICT. And the representatives from India and the joint Canada-Mozambique project will speak to this topic. So without further ado, can I invite each representative to introduce themselves and their project within 1.5 minutes. The first speaker is going to be Miss Isabel Fernandez from Colombia.
Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon to everyone. Many thanks, Janice. It's an honor for the Ministry of Education of Colombia to be part of this event. The program Todos Aprender has been implemented since 2012 by the Colombian Ministry of Education. Presently, the program covers about 14,500 schools in the country and involves roughly 1,900,000 students. 74% of schools are located in rural areas, which means that there's an even bigger challenge to be met. The point of the program is to improve learning by students in preschooler and beginning primary levels, especially in language and math, through reinforcing best teaching practices. The program is implemented through a training program, which is in cascade, as we say, which means that there are 100 trainers who train a group of roughly 4,500 tutors, and the tutors in their turn support in situ 84,000 teachers in subjects like didactics, evaluation, and management of the learning context. There's also a textbook for students and for teachers, and this year 2020, the Education Ministry delivered much material. We've also had implementation of the program, which has allowed us to improve students' results in national standardized tests And we've also seen improvement in teaching practices, especially in terms of use of time. In 2021, we will carry out a new evaluation of the program's impact. Thank you very much, Janice.
Thank you so much, Isabel. Now can I ask Dr. Medina Tainbayeva from Kazakhstan to talk about her project.
Salimets Izdirmia. Greetings from Nur-Sultan, Kazakhstan. And I will be talking about the project that we applied with. So in 2011, Nazarbayev Intellectual School started elaborating a new standard for school education in Kazakhstan. Before rolling it out, decision was made to train teachers through foundation courses on new tendencies in education, such as learner-centered education, assessment for and of learning, critical thinking, etc. Since 2015, specialized courses for every subject were launched. Thus, the aim of the project, Teacher Professional Development for the Renewed Curriculum, was to design a whole system approach to professionally develop school teachers who were to implement the renewed curriculum and assessment system in the secondary schools in Kazakhstan through development and conduction of the courses in every school subject and create conditions for implementation of the new practices. So the main beneficiaries are all teachers in the secondary schools in Kazakhstan. By today, the key achievements are, so more than 100 educational programs were developed in Kazakh and Russian, more than 2,000 trainers were prepared from the best school teachers. Since the launch of the project in 2015 and by the end of 2019, almost 90% of teachers and principals took the courses, so it's more than 300,000 teachers. A network of leading schools as the platforms for supporting teachers and sharing best practices of the renewed curriculum were established. At the moment, every sixth school in the country is ready to share their experience with partner schools. A system of school trainers for internal school support has been rolled out. At the moment, we have 48,000 school trainers. Wide post-course support of the teachers who are implemented in renewed curriculum, and a big online platform to support teachers. By today, we have more than 2 million downloads from this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I now ask, please, Mr. Alindo Mazias Bazan Hernandez from Peru to introduce yourself and your project.
Hello, thank you, Danis. Happy Teaching Day. I am Alindo Macias Bazan Hernandez. We have a project that we call META, Educational Model for an Education Community, and this is a project whose goal is to develop the autonomy of our teachers and our students, professional development, continuing education, teacher practices in the classroom, and also other forms of participation. And we're doing this because schools need self-training. In this context, we can also, we think, contribute to goal 4C of the SDG 4 of UNESCO. This project will directly benefit our teachers in classrooms, and we've been working with this for some years. We've visited more than 100 schools and tried to collect experiences, and we've had more than 200 Peruvian schools involved in this way, and we're trying to replicate this experience elsewhere. The idea is to further develop the autonomous working nature of both of students and of teachers. We are trying to have improved pedagogical practice through a very important strategy, which we call shared teaching, where teachers get together and pool their experience. This has had some very important consequences in terms of the role of teachers, making them more prone to dialogue and to cooperation, and to make schools a place where actual learning takes place. Thank you.
Mr. Vusi Kwane from South Africa will be speaking next. Thank you, Vusi.
Hope you can you hear me now? Thank you very
Yes,
much,
we
Angela. I hope
can.
you can. All right. I just want to introduce, first of all, who we are. The Sasol Foundation was established in 2008 with a broad mandate to impact STEM education in South Africa. The mandate, which is informed by the country's shortage of critical skills, especially in the arena of science and technology, such a shortage which has adverse impact on the country's global competitiveness. Since inception, the Sasol Foundation designed a suite of comprehensive resource-based educator development interventions, such as teacher capacity building, teaching and learning resources. Hence, our submission that was made is on resource-based educator development program. The main elements of this are the training and preparation of subject advisors and heads of departments on the content required to support the new curriculum that was introduced at the time, which was targeted at encouraging more behavioral and objectiveness approach to teaching and learning. The second element is the development of STEM workbooks and textbooks that were made affordable and accessible to many educators and learners via open source. And the third and the last element was support of an initiative by the Department of Basic Education in the country to promote collaboration and sharing by teachers through professional learning communities. Thank you, Janice.
Thank you, Vusi. Dr. Amina Sharania from India is up next.
Yeah, thank you so much, Janice. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, this project is housed in Tata Institute of Social Sciences, India, and was founded in 1936 by Sir Dorabji Tata Trust, one of the large philanthropy in India. It's a deemed university and it's interdisciplinary, and the education center, which was Center for Education, Innovation and Action Research, was established in the year 2015 in this university with a focus on innovation with using ICT very creatively and towards teacher professional development and teacher education programs. Our experience with teacher training using distance technologies come from large field action projects at the center, and these are committed to use ICT teaching and learning at scale with diverse population and across 7 states in India, across rural and also urban ghettos. This program is focusing on creating series of certificate courses, certifying and professionalizing teacher professional development in blended modes and now in online mode, with a focus of fostering a culture of constructivist use of ICT and not just making learners and teachers consumers of ICT resources, but advocate for learners as producers and using technology in a very constructivist pedagogy frame. These are mostly offered to government school and the lowest strata of the society, and also madrasas, which are Muslim minority religious and secular schools across 7 states in adolescents, middle school and secondary schools. This program, which is called Reflective Teaching with ICT, prepares teachers to competently and confidently build and exercise their knowledge and agency to use, design, and integrate technology meaningfully, making education more relevant to their social realities and culture, and in the process make education more connected, deep, and relevant for 21st century learners. Thank you.
Thank you, Amina. Could Mr. Scott Walker, can you introduce your joint project for Canada and Mozambique, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Janice. I'll start by expressing our appreciation to UNESCO and the Hamdan Foundation for this honor. Better is a program of teacher effectiveness delivered by the Mozambican NGO, Associação Progresso, and the Mozambique Ministry of Education, together with the Canadian Education NGO Code, with funding from Global Affairs Canada. Ultimately, the Better program is about improved and more equitable student learning outcomes, a goal that we are realizing by improving the quality of pre-service primary teacher training. In that regard, the program works with 4 teacher training institutes in the provinces of northern Mozambique, and from there, the benefits are shared at all teacher colleges nationwide. So let me just highlight 2 features of the program. One, to be effective, primary level school teachers must be able to teach reading and writing. To that end, one exciting innovation that has been introduced is literacy mentoring, where the student teacher works with a single child on an ongoing basis to get a hands-on, real-life understanding of how to teach reading. So this started at one college, is an expanding college by college at a time. And second, the promotion of gender equality. This includes training in gender responsive pedagogy, but we go a lot further to tackle gender-based violence. This has benefited from the development of a special toolkit for teachers, including a very innovative program on how to create videos with your cell phones as just one way to raise awareness. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, speakers, for introducing your project so well. Now we've reached the section of the panel discussion where the finalists will answer a specific question related to how they're scaling up their project's innovative teaching practices in the aftermath of COVID-19. And following that, the audience will then have the opportunity to ask questions in the chat that, or the question and answers that the panel will address. So for Colombia and Kazakhstan, who are addressing the topic of building better educational systems and school environments, your question is, COVID-19 has dramatically changed the way we organise education systems and school environments. What has been the main impact of the crisis on your projects and their implementation? Ms. Isabel Fernandez from Colombia, you have the floor first.
Gracias, Janice, y a todos.
Thank you, Janice. And everyone. Well, in the case of the program Todo Santander, the COVID pandemic had a big impact on implementation. I'll mention 3 aspects of this, because before the pandemic, training of trainers and of tutors happened presentially in 4 cycles over a year, and each cycle had a workshop that lasted 5 days. And then, with the support that was given by tutors to teachers, that also happened presentially, in situ, in each one of the classrooms involved, in each school involved. And with the pandemic, as we all know, in all countries, schools closed, and it was necessary to take other measures so that our children and teenagers could go on studying from home. In the case of our program, we had to adapt the content and the training of trainers and of tutors, which used to be presential, and to make it a program which goes on happening in cycles, but using ICT. Presently, this training has happened either synchronously or asynchronously, depending on the different connectivity possibilities and internet in the different regions of the country involved. And we share the situation that many countries have, where process of internet access in rural areas are much lower than in urban ones. When we work synchronically, we do that with programs like Teams, Meet, Zoom, other platforms. And for asynchronous training, we have a virtual classroom on a website, which is called Colombia Aprende, Colombia Learns, from the Education Ministry. And this virtual classroom is continuously available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And all the content of the training is there. Consulting materials and videos that have been worked out by tutors and trainers. This content, in addition, is filled out by over 800 forms of digital resources, which are available on another website of the Education Ministry, which is called Aprender Digital, Learn Digitally. And for asynchronous training of our teachers we use different strategies depending on the characteristics of each region. WhatsApp, social network like Facebook, phone calls, short videos, podcasts, radio programs, TV programs that can be sent out from local stations. We've seen here with this type of training, using this type of technology is very effective, and that's what's allowed us to say the training of trainees, tutors, can go on being done in this way. A second aspect of this impact in the program is had in the support we give to teachers in situ, because now we have to do this in a non-presential way as well, and so its focus will therefore be to advise teachers so they can design guidebooks and other materials so as to be able to cover the work that students are meant to be doing at home. And this means we aren't going to be able to talk about classroom management as such, but managing the learning environment. And then the third and last aspect I'd like to bring out, which is a very significant one, refers to the importance of students go on having texts and other printed materials to support their academic activities, because many of them do not have any access to internet or only access to this printed learning material. Thank you very much.
Can you speak next, please, Dr. Martina Tainabayeva from Kazakhstan?
Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Isabel. I think we are more or less in the same situation, having this COVID-19 situation. And I will talk on behalf of our organization as the Center of Excellence. We provide professional development to the teachers. And I should say that, of course, COVID-19 situation had an impact on our project, but I would rather call it a turning point. So previously, at the Center of Professional Development, we used platforms, we used online courses, but as additional means. Everything has been changed in March this year when distance learning became our new normality. We were in the same situation as the teachers were. So we had to train teachers in distance and through trainings to show best practices that they could use in their online lessons. We had to turn all our courses and other activities into online format. This was not only the change from offline to online, it was the change in the philosophy of what and how to teach. Saying this, we really had to think what should be given during the streaming sessions and what has to be learned by teachers themselves. It was a great experience and we learned a lot from it. Another big thing that we did is research. We researched the practices of distance learning. So we conducted a two-stage research, one in March and one in June. Almost 18,000 teachers participated in this research. And we also managed to observe the online lessons. So what we learned from this research and from these observations, from the point of personality and probably well-being, we learned that teachers felt really isolated. They felt a bit, staying alone in their problems on how to manage the technology, how to manage all the teaching and assessment. Then we learned that they really needed support in planning and conduction of the lessons, and then in conducting the communication between each other, between student, and then with parents. The results of the research became a foundation for developing a MOOC, Massive Open Online Course, which we called Learning to Teach Online, which was free of charge for all teachers in Kazakhstan. Within a month, which was August, before current academic year, we managed to train 345,000 teachers. 53% of them were from rural schools. So what feedback we got? Teachers highlighted that the knowledge and skills they learned at the course helped them feel more confident. So they knew at least what services they can use for different purposes. how they can plan the lesson, how they communicate with each other, because we even talked about the virtual communication space for teachers, then how they can talk to, with the means of what services they can talk to students and to parents. It was a large-scale approach, we understand, so we covered the whole country, which also helped us to be more precise in capturing best experience and making our expertise be accessible for teachers in every school in Kazakhstan. We did not stop even for a minute during this time, and we will not. At the moment, we are in the process of second stage of research, and the focus is not what is the change from the traditional lesson, but what is the online lesson, what online lesson is. We learn along with the teachers. We keep moving and see more perspectives for further development and work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up are Peru and South Africa, whose projects relate to the second topic, building new community practices to support teacher development. So the floor is yours, Mr. Alandor Bazan Hernandez.
Gracias, Janice. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Janice. In Peru, just like in the other countries, we've been impacted by this crisis, and naturally, the Ministry of Education has implemented a strategy called Aprendo en Casa, learning at home. It's a distance learning modality in which teachers are at the center of this work to support and provide feedback, because classes in Peru are being taught through television, radio, and through platforms. But despite all of these efforts, some students are not managing to access these services, so teachers have been concerned. However, there is a very wide coverage, and we're trying to roll it out as best possible. In our case, we are the San Vicente de Paul school in Cajamarca, in a rural area. In our project called the Meta Educational Model, we have focused on teachers. We have focused on developing their skills such as autonomy, but collegiate work and shared teaching has allowed us to bring about a diversified curriculum which responds to the needs of our students, and so that we can address all of the areas of the curriculum through a virtual classroom and WhatsApp groups, and students who are working with printed text if they don't have the technology. So not all students are working with the same tools, but in teams and according to their access. For example, some days they weren't able to access the internet, and we can't just let them not learn for that day. We just move them into a different group in which they would use printed texts that were distributed by the Ministry of Education. The school that we have is a learning community, and this ensured that we mutually provided support for each other so that we could support this, the teaching process in this context. For example, one fifth-year student actually ended up being our facilitator and taught us how to use Classroom and the other Google tools. So I think teachers aren't only those who teach, we also learn from our students. And then parents are also important. We need to develop an education community to address the global education issues, which can be addressed starting from school. School is a driver of change. And on the other hand, our project allows us to work on development of soft skills of teachers, such as empathy and communication. And this is something that we didn't focus on when we were doing in-person lessons, but we've highlighted it now. And in Peru and elsewhere, it's important to have the support of other members of the education community. We're supported by FONDEP, for example, here in Peru, And we're working on 4 social and emotional skills, which will allow us to develop these skills further in teachers. So this project has really helped teachers to develop autonomy and self-training in schools so that we can develop soft skills. So we need schools to really come together in a network of teachers. We're working together as teachers. In Peru, we've met up in an innovative teachers network, which joins together several schools in Peru. And we've been supporting each other so that we have been able to come up with innovative solutions to support distance learning. Thank you very much, Janice.
Thank you, Alan. It's your turn now, Mr. Vusi Kwane from South Africa.
Thank you very much, Janice. I just want to start by maybe indicating the approach that our foundation takes in terms of building resources. Our approach is to impact the STEM education system. We therefore partner and work collaboratively with the South African Department of Basic Education. We found that that is a lot better than if we're to target individual entities for greater impact. We focus on training the trainer, thus inducing a greater reach through the cascade model. We do, however, acknowledge the limitations of the model, as most people know. As a foundation, we have a track record in building curriculum-based digital resource materials, which are offered in platforms that are zero-rated, allowing greater access, especially for children coming from disadvantaged communities. We've also built, with our partners, training needs assessment portal to help identify content gap that teachers might have, which would then allow, obviously, for effective teaching. What this actually does, it allows proper development of well-targeted, contextualizing our resource build process with COVID-19. We have seen acceleration of the move to e-learning as a credible alternative, and I think people have actually said that. But this required digital resources that are accessible. It has been said that where those resources were not there, or where if they were there, they could not be afforded, that it was very difficult for the learners to actually get learning during COVID-19. The foundation had one of the specific projects that we supported during this time was what we call the STEM Lockdown Digital Class, which actually ensured that learners learned during COVID-19. But the important thing is that the materials that were built and that were generated through these classes have now been taken out to be migrated to a portal that is zero-rated, which then will allow greater access, not only to those that could actually get onto online classes, as it were. We've also seen a very positive move, Janice, in terms of communities of practices, where the gatherings are now virtual. These gatherings used to be more physical, but the biggest advantage is now the fact that a lot of people are in fact able to actually get through and then contribute, as it were, in terms of sharing their resources. So if I link all of this with what I have said is our approach, clearly there are opportunities to the creation of new communities of practice, but for me it can be argued that the availability of resources is a crucial enabler. Learning and teaching materials made available on zero-rated ICT platforms do allow the teachers to organize themselves to share their own resources, to share their learnings, mentorship programs, and many things, strategies, and in particular, take charge of their own development, supplementing the limited resources that the education department can actually offer. So just to conclude then, for me, I would advocate that learning and teaching resources need to continue to be developed and made widely available and affordable. Pockets of best practices that are sitting in various communities of practice need to be shared and replicated. All of this to advance the development of probably the most important resources in our education system, the teachers who are about and celebrating today. Thank you, Janice.
Thank you, Vusi. Now, the final question relates to the third topic, scaling teacher training practices and the use of ICT. So for India and the joint project from Canada, Mozambique, your question is, how do you foster inclusion and equity in teacher training in your context? So how would you answer this question, Dr. Amina Sharania from India?
Yeah, thanks, Janice. To start with, our certificate courses on reflective teaching with ICT, although these were designed for teachers who were teaching in government schools and underprivileged sections and also madrasas, we realized that in this pandemic, everybody needed teacher professional development. So we opened up our courses to even private schools, teacher educators, college, we just basically opened up and made a common platform for everyone to come and take the courses. That was the first move. And what helped us doing that was to convert our blended learning courses into a totally online and give bite size, condense the size of the course, the content of the course. And also, very importantly, we had a practice component in the courses earlier. And all this practice component required teachers to read, reflect, and then go practice in a face-to-face environment. And we converted this practice into an online practice, and so that the teachers would get an opportunity to practice and teach online while they are taking the course, and come back and reflect on it and read about it. So I think that really helped. What also we did was we also thought that the route to certificate course is very rigorous, and and not all teachers may want to sign up for it. And so we explored, and we also tried to make a certificate course self-paced. And we said it's okay if you don't sign up for a certificate course, take it in a self-paced way, use the resources which are open. And very creatively, we also thought of including a digital badge so that they didn't have so much of pressure to do a certificate course, but also if they used and implemented a learning and created a lesson plan and then implemented in a distance mode, they would still get a badge. And that was very reinforcing for a lot of teachers. So in a way, we explored different modalities and did not stick to the certificate course that we had earlier. I think that really helped to reach to a wider audience and wider platform. Secondly, we thought it was very important to go back and support our teachers who had taken our certificate course in a very rigorous blended mode before the COVID period. And we realized that they had competence in ICT, they had agency now, but still there was an urge to go back in the lecture mode and start using all these distance technologies to give lectures to their students, because they didn't have experience to how to handle this kind of a situation. So I think in that case, what really helped was giving demonstration of project and problem-based learning using, for example, WebQuest, and directly we were actually demonstrating this with the students in the government schools, and we involved teachers. So I think after a few demonstrations of online web quests, which were tied to the curriculum and pedagogy and 21st century, the teachers really very fast adapted this and started doing it in their local languages. So I think these demonstrations really helped. Again, what I felt was that compared to the teachers who did not have this kind of an experience with reflective teaching with ICT, I think those teachers, as per a survey also indicates, they were asking more and more ICT competencies, and they were asking more and more digital resources in regional language. But I felt that this ask was coming because they desperately wanted to replicate the face-to-face environment, and they thought these two things will really help them. But what I realized that the teachers who were with us before, they actually took ICT as a potential. In fact, in a lot of our interviews, they said that there was no timetable. So there was no restriction how much deeper we can go to the topic and how much time students can spend on project and problem. So they found opportunities in this kind of a model. So I feel going forward, although ICT competencies and working with distance technologies are extremely important skills, and of course digital content in regional languages are extremely important, but what is really meaningful and what really helped here was that the teacher had the agency to adapt their prior knowledge and practice and competence to a different situation. Because I feel that right now the need is to adapt in an online mode, but after a few months, the need, when the school becomes like a staggering timetable, the need may change and they may be required to work using blended forms, and the training can't keep changing. But I think this whole confidence, competence, and agency to adapt to different situation and making critical decisions by themselves as to what will work in what situation and what technologies will be meaningful to make active learning happen is very critical and should be part of the teacher professional development curriculum and pedagogies. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amina. So, Mr. Scott Walker, how would you foster inclusion and equity in teacher training in Mozambique?
Thank you, Janice. Let me just start by saying, in order to make we were concerned about making the course and the material accessible right from the beginning. Mozambique, especially where we're working in northern Mozambique, is a very remote area, and the schools and colleges are also remote. So we started by developing a dynamic and user-friendly digital learning platform to support access to program materials and to the ministry's own distance education programs. So with schools and colleges closed or operating at emergency levels due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this platform has since become the ministry's main hub to disseminate resources to both teachers and students nationwide. We've been able to further strengthen that by disseminating teaching and learning materials through WhatsApp and other activities such as creating instructional videos of successful teacher practices for posting on the digital platform. We've, again, from the beginning, tried to put a strong focus on inclusion. So for example, the 5 teacher education textbooks and the teaching guides that have been published include Mozambique languages. And our partner Progresso has published early concept books on the main Mozambique languages. So in total, they're working in 8 different languages, including Portuguese. And so that's done a lot to open and support inclusion. I would say, though, that in terms of equity, the single greatest thing is the strong focus on gender equality that the program has. So it starts with equipping teachers with the knowledge, the skills, and attitudes to empower them to respond adequately to the learning needs of all learners, but to both girls and boys. Another is to ensure access to learning and reading materials that are contextually relevant. So authored locally, published locally, ensuring that these materials promote positive images of all children. And as I had mentioned before, a big part of the program is to empower the student teachers to fight sexual harassment and gender-based violence. One of the ways of doing that is through our toolkit, which has been disseminated, but also through training in what's called participatory visual methodologies. So these are the cell films that I had mentioned earlier. These are made and screened in the community, enabling discussions that were really never previously possible. So that's a highlight of these areas of equity and inclusion. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's looking like we haven't got questions coming through from the chat. So on behalf of our virtual audience here today, or rather tonight in my part of the world, I'd like to sincerely thank the finalists of the 6th edition of the UNESCO-Hamdan Prize for sharing the details of your projects with us, and also for your very considered responses to our questions as to how you are managing to scale up the teaching practices to support your education systems in the aftermath of COVID-19. Teachers in your projects will be really effective in leading through crisis as they innovatively reimagine the future in their countries and school communities. So I'd like to conclude this session with a Maori proverb from New Zealand. Te manu I kai ana, I te miro, nona te nai hari, te manu I kai ana, I te mā tauranga, nona te ao. The bird who partakes of the merrill berry owns the forest. The bird who partakes of education owns the world. So thank you everyone for attending this panel discussion to honour World Teachers Day 2020, and I wish you well in your projects, all of the finalists. Thank you. Have a good night.
Kia ora, Janice.
Oh, kia ora. Thank you.
We were very pleased to have you, Janice. I know it's very late, but we really appreciate your presence with us, and also the combination of English and Maori language, which we would love to learn more. So kia ora again, Janice, and to all your participants in the panel. It has been really very important panel, and there were many question and engagement. Just maybe we were not very able to compile this and put them to the panels. But let me pick up a few questions that were coming and just to emphasize them. The first one is about connectivity, and there was a question from Colombia asking about what are the measures that can be adopted to ensure better connectivity of teachers, because we tend to think about connectivity of learners, which is important definitely, but it's also about connectivity of teachers. And what are the measures that were put in place? Any promising practice that we can learn from the panelists and from the group about that? And I don't know if somebody from the panel can still share with us any measures that you have adopted or your government has adopted to reach out to marginalized teachers or disadvantaged teachers, for example, in rural areas with connectivity. Do you have an example? Isabel, please.
Sí, en Colombia el gobierno
in Colombia, the national government, with the support of the Ministry for Technology and Communications, developed an app that's called Colombia app, and which decreased in one way or another, the costs of data service via cell phones, precisely so as to try to give much greater accessibility using cell phones, and especially for, well, for anyone really, but especially in our case, teachers and students. That was one of the measures taken. Obviously, it's not enough because we have problems in different rural areas in which you can't even get a signal, either for internet or for a cell phone. And our Ministry for Communications and ICT is working on that. Many thanks.
Another interesting question that I have seen also in the Q&A is how the project and the different initiatives that we have heard about are promoting community of practices among teachers, not only within the school or the institution where your project is implemented, but also cross institution, maybe cross regions or cross different teachers community. Do we have any example of how you are promoting community of practices and sharing how you are responding and again building this knowledge sharing and capacities of a large number of teachers?
Let me answer this question.
Please go ahead.
So I mentioned in my speech that we launched a big project on MOOC, massive online course, which really allowed to communicate the teachers and to promote their practices, because in the end of the course, they had a kind of a plan of the online lesson which they could share with each other. So through the means of the platform which we used for this MOOC and through the experience and expertise of different teachers had an access to different experiences, and they could use some of the lesson plans in their practice because it was according to the standard that we have in our country.
Thank you very much. Let me come, there was also another question, and I've heard, I don't recall, Janice, you are moderating, so I was listening, but not pointing everybody. There was I think Amina was referring to the badges and micro-credentials. Can you tell us a bit more about the value of those credentials in terms of potentially its valorization within the education system, its recognition, and potentially in support of career development? Amina, please.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, so we very recently started using digital badges because we thought certificate courses were very rigorous. It took a lot of time, and not all teachers were able to complete it. Although our completion rates were pretty good, but we thought in this period it may not be very practical. So then we started with digital badges. The first time this digital badges, we tried very, very simple technology, of creating and designing badge. And to start with, we gave them this digital badges because the teachers who took the certificate courses actually tried to, start their own blog, put the lesson plans for the rest of the teachers so that they can use WhatsApp groups to take classes. So to reward them, we gave them digital badges, and we told them you are leaders in digital technology. So they really felt good. But going forward, although, we also used community of practice. So the teachers who took the certificate courses, they got certificates, and then they trained other teachers. Now, in this nested approach, when they were training other teachers, these other teachers were not getting any certificate courses. So we actually negotiated with a lot of state governments, and they really liked this idea that at scale, when certificate course is not possible, this digital badges of very micro small courses, which leads to very direct practice, will be very useful. And you don't always need academia to accredit it. So it can be academia with the state government. So that is something which we have piloted, and we are very excited to scale this.
Thank you, Amina. Very interesting. And I would like to join your community, earn some credits and badges. Maybe UNESCO will recognize that for my own career.
Sure, you're welcome.
Okay, I have a last question to Vuzi. You mentioned that one essential part of STEM education are that you are experimenting STEM education, but one of the important aspect is, of course, experimentation and practices. So how you are solving this problem from distance? Any experience to share with us, Vuzi?
Your mic is muted.
You are muted, Vuzi.
Apologies. Yes, no, right. So I'm back again. Yes, no. What I was saying is that part of the ways to make sure that we reach out to people is obviously through making life a little bit easier on the connectivity side. And this we've tried to do by talking to to telecoms companies, so that the materials that actually is available on portals is then zero rated. That then means that people from far are able to obviously the list of devices that are not the most sophisticated able to connect the learning materials. Otherwise, you do then the privilege of the actually having is
sorry, Vuzi, we are
content to the right places.
Thank you very much. We are losing you, but I think what I understood
and
is
then,
that
and then sorry, then the other part that I just want, yeah, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Very quickly, if you don't mind. Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Then the other part that I just want to say as well, we do reach out in our remote areas. One of the things that we have actually experimented is through mobile laboratories, where we actually brought science into the people in those areas, so that the people in the most remote and rural areas are also able to access the world of science. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you again to Janice and to all the panelists. It has been really great to have you, and you enlightened us with the very interesting and very promising practices. We also spoke about how to scale these practices, because one of the challenge, of course, is for us how to leave no one behind, and how to ensure that those practices that are promising, that are effective, can be shared, can be scaled, and can be offered to a large number of beneficiaries. So I would like to thank again all the organizations. You are the winners as well, because you have been able to share your experience and give a good perspective on what we have done, what you have been doing, and how we can learn from your own project. I know that we have many questions in the Q&A. We are sorry for this. We know that there is a lot of expectation when we are having such type of webinars, but obviously our panelists are available. They can be reached out. Those practices, and I know that there was a question where all these good practices and promising practices will be available. We are will be preparing a synthesis report that will refer to all these practices. You will have the links, you have additional information, so no worry. Everything will be available, and you can reach out to all colleagues wherever they are, from New Zealand to Latin America to the Pacific. So thank you very much. And Janice, you can stay with us, Janice. I know you would like to go to sleep, but stay with us still. I would like, again, of course, to thank the three winners, the moderators of the two panel discussion, the Hamdan Foundation for their support and continued engagement with us, our co-conveners and partners, UNICEF, ILO, Education International, the different speakers that have been able to join us today and share their perspective. Of course, I think all of us are thankful to teachers for their tireless efforts, incredible creativity and imagination, and dedication to the cause of leaving no one behind. They are truly among the most important workers in the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Dear colleagues, as I mentioned earlier, this year we wanted to have a Word Teacher Day, but we wanted also to have a Word Teacher Week. We thought that one day is not sufficient to celebrate teachers' role. We thought that one day is not sufficient to engage in a deep discussion related to how teachers have been responding, what are the challenges that we are facing, and how internationally, through this dialogue, through this peer learning, we can share promising practices, and we can share practices that can help teachers and governments and national stakeholders in addressing the challenge. So in fact, it is a Word Teacher Day, but it is also Word Teacher Week. And we have a very rich program going forward. We have different sessions that are planned. We have around 17 events that are taking place throughout the week with a lifelong learning perspective. And I would like to emphasize this point. We are having sessions not only about K-12 teachers. We are also having sessions on early child education teachers. We are having sessions on literacy and adult learning teachers. We are having session on technical and vocational education teachers, and also tertiary and higher education teachers. So we are covering a wide range of learning settings and a wide range of education levels. We are also having partners who are joining us in this endeavor. We are happy to have with us ILO, the Teacher Task Force, Education Development Trust, Teach for All, and the Varkey Foundation as partners, including to UNESCO, its institute, like the Institute for Planning, UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning, and other field offices that are involved in these events. So we are having a large and an important, I would say, set of events that probably will be able to address the spectrum of needs and the different learning settings as we are considering them in a lifelong learning perspective, as I mentioned earlier. We are also, exceptionally, we are jointly organizing with the Mobile Learning Week a joint session that will celebrate the end of the Word Teacher Day and the start of the Mobile Learning Week, with the focus on technology in education for teachers. And we will have an opportunity in a way to discuss and make the bridge between the Word Teachers Day and Word Teacher Week and the Mobile Learning Week that will start early next week. Stay with us. I know Janice would like to go to sleep, but for colleagues who are still awake, please join us later in almost 35 minutes. Will be a feature session on teacher leadership, showcasing grassroots teachers' initiative in response to school closure. As you know, we selected the theme for this year, which is about teachers' leadership. And we would like to look at how teachers have been leading in their schools, communities, classrooms, and in the virtual learning setting and the virtual world as well. In the session that will start at 4 p.m. Paris time, we take a look at exemplary responses initiated by teachers to keep students learning during the pandemic. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we are looking at lifelong learning opportunities, and we'll be able to share this perspective in the different debate that we will have starting from 4 o'clock this afternoon Paris time. I would like to thank you all. We have been more than 550 participants during this afternoon session and the awarding ceremony during this celebration of the Word Teacher Day, the kickstart of the celebration. Please come back in 35 minutes. We'll be continuing the debate. We'll be continuing the engagement. We'll have eminent experts joining us to share experiences. We'll have teachers who will be sharing also their experience, because we have been looking at different experiences, and we will have a debate about how to leverage, how to unleash the potential of teachers as leaders in their communities, in their classroom, in their schools, but also in lifelong learning settings in different areas of the education and training system. So thank you very much. See you in 25 minutes. Please have some rest and join us in the next session. Thank you.